another Tutorial Tuesday. Go ahead and ask your questions about anything related to photography, being self-employed, or actually doing this for a living. I can't wait to hear from you. I want to give a shout out to my friend Houston. I bought one of his shirts a week ago or 2 weeks ago. All hustle and no luck pretty much sums up being self-employed. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. The first question that comes in is actually late from last week, and I didn't have a chance to respond to it. So it reads, where do you primarily get your clients from? And the answer to that I'll go into on the next video. The short answer to this question is my clients are primarily referral based. It's pretty rare that I get a cold contact, meaning somebody that reaches out that I don't know to photograph them. So it's mainly referral based. When you're first starting out, the one thing that you can't do is nothing. You have to step out the door. You have to get that shoe leather marketing going, or guerrilla marketing, whatever you call it. You have to shake hands. You have to give business cards. You have to use the internet. You have to use every avenue available to you. Josh coming through with the hard questions. I can definitely spend a whole day talking about this, but I'll try and wrap it up in maybe 3 or 4 videos, so I'll go into that next. With this question, I break it down into 2 parts. One is staying focused. The other is staying in that creative zone. Staying focused for me really is more prescriptive, so I'll use a piece of paper and a pen and a priority list. Staying focused for me comes down to this. This is how I prioritize everything that I'm doing, from my shoots, my to-do list, orders, and invoices, and then I prioritize those accordingly. Staying in that creative zone really is a flow state for me, and that came after most of those hurdles were over. In other words, I knew exposure, I knew my camera, things I didn't have to think about while I was trying to get the images out of my head. The creative zone for me is more of a flow state, and that flow state is like a swim lane that goes all the way across every column of photography. So from the conception of a shoot to actually executing the shoot to post-processing. In each one of the stages that I talked about in photography where that flow state goes across them, what I'm looking for is to challenge myself while I'm out on location. That always pushes my creativity. And then I'm also doing the same thing in post-processing as well. The biggest challenge for me is maintaining balance between the creative flow state and also being self-employed, where being self-employed, everything falls down on you. And sometimes that really pushes down your creativity. What it comes down to for me is maintaining that balance through having a handful of shoots to edit, to getting out invoices, to marketing, and then also getting out and shooting. I do use my own presets for Lightroom. I've developed them over the years, and I have about 25. They're based on the time of day that I shoot, the locations that I'm shooting in, heck, even the studio lights that I'm using. Yes, I do sell my 5 most used presets, and those are $35. So just direct message me if you'd like that. I do have a few tips for workflow and editing process. I'll go into that in the next couple of videos, but just beforehand, I use Canon products, so a 5D Mark III and a 5D Mark IV, and I'll tell you what saves me time. As far as workflow, what I do is use the rate button on the back of my cameras. So if I'm at a rodeo and a barrel racer finishes her run, I can go through and give the images that have the most impact a rating of 1 through 5. What that does for me on the back end when I get home is when I upload the images to Lightroom, I can automatically sort by those that I rated out in the field, which saves me a drastic amount of time. Now, when I get into editing, depending on where I was shooting, maybe that was a crappy indoor lighting rodeo arena, I have presets for that. So if I'm there, then I apply those presets to those images, and it saves me a ton of time. The last thing I'd add here is that word quick. That's subjective. By way of example, I shot a high school rodeo back in March, every kid, every event, and I was able to turn about 3,000 images in 24 hours using my own presets and the rating. I like this question a lot because it's fundamental to what we do as photographers, so I'm going to take a couple videos and address it. When I go about deciding whether or not my images are junk or special, it comes down to one thing for me first and foremost, and that's impact. If your photo doesn't have impact, then it's likely not going to have impact on anybody else that views it. Impact is that special quality that an image has that gives it life. It's something that stops you and you go, wow, I really like that image, or you just move on. Impact is subjective based on the viewer's opinion too. One thing that I do want to say is, and you can burn me at the stake for heresy here, but Instagram does not drive what I post. In other words, if you look at my images, I'll have 300 likes on one post and maybe 4,000 on another. I'm not driven by the number of likes that I get on an image. I'm driven by the impact that an image has on me when I'm in editing, even when I'm out in the field shooting. These images wouldn't be up on my wall if they didn't have impact. There can also be a prescriptive part to figuring out whether or not your image is special or if it's junk. And that is, are you following compositional guidelines? Is there directional lighting in there? Is there color harmony? Are there leading lines or anything like that? And there's also another one, and that is focus. But for every one of these prescriptive methods that I've talked about, the opposite can be true. Not every image needs to be in focus, and not every image needs to have color harmony or compositional guidelines. The last thing here is, if you're not out there shooting, then you're not in here editing, and you're not being able to go through that process of selecting whether or not it's special or it's junk. So you need to be out there and you need to be shooting. Although your entire message didn't come through, I will address the question in your first sentence here in the next video. When I first started out, I did feel like I needed multiple lenses, and I think at one point I had 5. Now I have 3. I have my 70-200, I have a 50mm, and I have my 16-35, and that's all that I need. Are professional series lenses expensive? Yeah, they sure are, but they're not if you're getting paid for it. But as a cost savings alternative, you can buy them used. You can also rent them for a fraction of the price and try them out before you spend that money. This next question came to me via direct message and asks, how do I store my images? External hard drives fail just like computers do. Is there another option? And I'll go into that in my next video. There's a few options available to the everyday photographer, and that is 1, stack those external hard drives. 2, use a cloud storage. 3, use what's called Drobo, and I'll talk about that in just a second. I use the first option. I stack my external hard drives. I have 5 of them. 1 is a working drive, 1 is a backup of my working drive, and 1 is a backup of the backup. Ideally, I would want to take that external backup off-site. That second option is use of the cloud. I don't do that, but many people that I know do, and they just sync their images when they upload them, and they go right to the cloud, and they'll always be there, assuming that the cloud provider doesn't fail. And that final option that I was talking about, the use of the Drobo, it's a little box that sits on your desk, and it has anywhere from 5 to 8 bays, and those bays are filled with hard drives, and those hard drives mirror one another. In the Drobo solution, what you're looking at is setting up hard drives that mirror one another so that in the event that one of your primary hard drives fail, one of your backups automatically comes in without a glitch. There's a long and short answer to your question here. The short answer is yes, I was invited to the events. And from that invite, I was invited more. The long answer is, how did I become a pro photographer? I became a pro photographer out of necessity to make money. The next question comes in via direct message, and it asks, when doing portraits outside in clear skies, do I get my best results by using the sun as my main light or using it as a backlight and bouncing light into the subject via a reflector? Let's dissect this question just a little bit for those of you that may not be aware of what we're talking about as far as the sun being the key light. When the sun is a key light, we're illuminating the subject like that. And for backlighting, the sun would be behind our subject. For me and my images, especially for portraits, I tend to stay out of direct sunlight. What I will look for is directional light, and what I mean by that is sun coming in, hitting the side of a horse trailer, white or silver, and bouncing light back in. I do have to admit, I am a backlight junkie. In fact, I should probably start a support group, backlightjunkies.com or something like that, because I love that kind of lighting. The last part of this question is, do I prefer a high or low sun? I prefer a low sun because of the directional lighting, the quality of lighting, and the quantity that comes through during those times. But it doesn't mean I can't use that high noon sun.